And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025. Good evening, welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes, 8 minutes after 6. Plenty to come in the next little while. I was astonished to see an argument put forward by NERSA, the energy regulator. I mean, you would expect the energy regulator to know the regulations and the law better than anyone. And yet they stood up in a court yesterday and argued that you, as someone who pays a council for electricity, have no right to know what that council is paying Eskom for electricity. I have to tell you, that's not my understanding of the Constitution at all. When we talk about consultation, your right to government information, all of those things, we'll talk about that with Chris Yelland in a moment. You'll have heard all of the talk, the commentary, quite a lot of anger too at air traffic navigation services over the last few months and the problems they've had with flight procedures. They had a big presentation today, their results out today. The acting CEO of ATNS, Matome Mogalola, actually in our studio already. He'll speak to you in a few moments as well. We'll put some questions to him about the progress they are making and what still needs to be done. Air traffic navigation services is not something you want to rush. This is something you do want to get right. We'll talk a little bit about that before 6:30. Also tonight, just looking at the issues around the NHI, Nicholas Crisp, Dr. Crisp, I should say, the Director General in charge of the NHI, talking about medical aid tax credits in Parliament, and again, a suggestion that actually they're going to be canned in some way, and particularly the sort of upper third of them. I think that's going to be an important conversation. And you might not feel it, but there is some information suggesting that salaries are actually going up and have been going up for the last 6 months or so. I always think you don't really feel your salary increasing in value. It doesn't squeeze you as much as it does when it goes the other way. We'll also, of course, talk about one or two other things and talking about some of the issues that we've seen around Southern Sun. They now have announced a big lease from the city of eThekwini of the two big buildings that make up those two big hotels, Maharani and the Elangeni in Durban. As we approach the sort of holiday period, I don't know if you've made a holiday plan yet. Have you made a holiday plan that's radically different or pretty much the same as last year? And where will you be spending your money over the Christmas period? Has it lost its luster? There's some suggestions that it has. Do you know where you'll be going? Will you just be going home, maybe to Limpopo or the Eastern Cape? 011 8830 702 021 446 0567. And voice notes tonight on 072 702 1702. It's 10 minutes now after 6 o'clock.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, the acting CEO of Air Traffic Navigation Services, Matome Mogalola, confirming today that around 1/3 of the mandated flight procedures have not been properly maintained. They can't be used. And what that means is that at some airports, some aeroplanes can't take off and land during bad weather. The procedure that allows them to do that has not been managed properly over the last 5 years. You'll have heard many conversations about all of this. Well, this is the acting CEO, Matome Mogalola, in our studios now. Matome, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in.
Good evening, Stephen, and thank you. Great to be on your show.
1/3 of your procedures can't be used. I imagine you're quite disappointed about that.
True, we are indeed sorry about that. But on the positive side, we have done 2/3 out of about 388 procedures we were able to maintain and review almost 240. Those have been approved by the regulator, SACA, and they're being flown as we speak. It's a huge improvement compared to where we come from. When you look at this time last year, it's totally complete picture altogether. We are excited about it. Of course, it's not where we had intended to be by now, but we think it's a great milestones. We are headed in the right direction. We are actually pleased about it.
How much more needs to be done? Because as you update procedures, so others fall out of date and they have to be updated again. It's a bit like running to stand still. How long do you think it'll be before you can comfortably say everything is running as it should be running?
So, Stephen, we're looking at no later than July 2026 to have all the procedures completed within the country. But I must qualify that. Currently, every airport, except for Polokwane, does have a procedure. Almost all airports we have done. except for Polokwane, there's still some challenges. Of course, there are issues with PE, there are issues with Richards Bay. We can talk to that at a later stage. What we have done is we have looked at the predominantly used runways at all the key major airports, and we have ensured that all those predominantly used runways do have procedures. And so, for example, you'll find that OR Tambo has got 15 procedures. And out of those 15, we have prioritized the mostly used procedures. And those that are not predominantly used have not been maintained. And those are the ones that will then have to get down on business, to business on them and make sure that we run them through. We're targeting the 30th of July next year to have all of those purely, completely maintained.
Okay, so the big issue for a lot of the problems has been at the smaller airports, where things were not kept up to scratch as they should have been, and that means that when there's bad weather, airlines are not able to actually land and take off. So, apart from Polokwane, can airlines fly and take off? Can they land and take off in bad weather at all the other airports?
Correct. We can confirm that. You would have heard lately that there were issues with Kruger. We are happy to inform the public that Kruger is back online. As early as last week, Friday, we were able to bring it back online. We have Richards Bay that's unfortunately still not back online. We are still struggling with Richards Bay, but as of the 27th of November, Kruger will be back online. Richards Bay will be back online. Again, it's observing the ERIC cycle, which is the publication process that has to be undertaken as soon as the procedure and the chart are approved. So we are confident that come the 27th of November, almost all of the other airports, except, like as we have said, Polokwane. Polokwane, we're targeting end of the 25th of December, just on Christmas Day to have it running. That's the date on which the ERIC cycle will be coming through. So we're looking at Polokwane for the 25th, but the rest of the other airports, we believe that we have them covered. At least there is one working procedure at those airports.
Okay, so where the procedures haven't been working, where there have been problems, it's cost airlines a huge amount of money. I mean, you accept that. The airlines are your clients, actually. They pay you for services. And in fact, they've complained to us on the Money Show that they have to pay you even if the procedure's not working. I think that's right, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. But so this has been one of those sort of slow-moving crises that you see sometimes. I'm not sure if we've seen a real sense of urgency from air traffic navigation services on this. People have been losing money hand over fist. If you talk about the Kruger National Park airport, the airport there, it's vital in terms of tourism. For some of the smaller places like Gqeberha, they really need all the tourism they can get. And yet, they've been losing tourists, never mind what it does to our reputation, when people can't actually move around. And I don't know if we've seen a sense of crisis from ATNet.
No, indeed we have, Stephen. As I say, when you look at where we were this time last year, none of these procedures were maintained. I mean, you look at the en route procedures, we've got about 181. In a space of a month, we were able to maintain about 175. Those have been approved by the regulator. And so there's great effort that the organization has put into place to ensure that we redeem ourselves as an entity. I must also say we apologize to the public for these procedures not having been maintained in the last 5-10 years. It's very regrettable that we find ourselves here, but we have done the best we could under the circumstances. What the public may not know is we have challenges with capacity. And this capacity is not only isolated to ATNS. Worldwide, there's a shortage of flight procedure designers. And so as we speak here today within ATNS, we are working on a skeleton staff. We've got about 2 fully employed procedure designers. We've got 5 contracted, 5
You've just got 7 people to do all of this. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it takes about 24 days to run one procedure. And so if you look at what happened in the past with the 2 staff complement we've had, taking about 24 flight procedure designs to be done, essentially it would have meant that in a month we would have had only 2 procedures designed. And so we have now ramped up our capacity as an organization. We've gone out, recruited international designers. We currently have 3, 2 in the UAE. We've got 1 in the UK who are on a contract basis assisting us. We've got 2 more locally that are currently assisting us over and above the two that we have on our books.
So I realize that none of this comes cheap. I mean, basically, this is an industry, the airline industry is completely dollarized. We've been told on the Money Show that the private sector, I presume airlines, has actually offered to help with finding these people or even helping with their salaries. Are you willing to accept that help? Is that the issue?
Certainly. Money has not been an issue, Stephen, if I may be honest with you. Funding has not been an issue. The issue has been to secure the resources themselves. It's just proven very difficult to secure these resources because of the scarcity of the skills that we're talking about. And so, indeed, we have worked together with the industry. Likes of ASA have come BASA has come on board, and they've provided some assistance to us to say, look, we in our engagements, within the industry, we know of certain, individuals that could be of assistance to you. They have referred those candidates to us. We are in the process of looking into the applications that they've made to us and working together with the regulator who will onboard those resources. So we are willing to work with the industry. And as a matter of fact, we are indeed working with the industry on the ground to get the necessary assistance we can get.
Okay. I'm afraid I'm a cynical person in a cynical time, so forgive my next question. The Civil Aviation Authority is the body that you work with, right? They obviously have to, tick all of these things. I am presuming that they didn't lower any of the regulations or any of the testing that needed to happen. They didn't change any of the actual procedures to make it easier for you. You just did what you had to do to meet their requirements. Is that right?
If that was the case, I can tell you now, we would have done all the 380 procedures. We wouldn't be talking about the 100 odd procedures that are still to be maintained. We maintain a very healthy relationship with the Civil Aviation Authority. They are independent. They provide oversight on us. They do us no favors in any way or form or shape. And we do our best. We don't want to go into the details of what it takes to get the procedure approved. If you were to come around, we would show you the kind of process that we undertake, the back and forth, the rejections we get from SACA, and the rework that has to happen to satisfy the requirements.
You say that there's been a sense of urgency, that you've made a lot of progress. I was surprised to look at your report presentation that came out today. There's a slide that says summary of performance per outcome. And ATNS gives itself a score of 79%, when 1/3 of the procedures don't work. Now, I realize there are lots of other things you've got to measure. I think all the public sees, all the airlines see, is that they haven't been able to land at airports they should always be able to land at, and yet there's the score of 79%.
You're correct. Indeed, you're right. We measure all other things as well, over and above, the flight procedure designs. In this specific year, as part of us not having reached our target, it's because we have not been able to maintain the procedures. That's why we could not even get to 100%. One of the key performance indicators that we were tracking over the year was the customer satisfaction. And we got a beating from that, from the industry, because the industry was just not happy with our performance.
Are you talking to the industry on a regular basis? I'm not sure if it was yourself or someone else from ATNS who was at the big conference the other day, the Southern African Airlines conference. But I know that the aviation industry, the airlines, have been furious with you simply because they've lost a lot of money.
We are talking to the industry. There are sessions that happen regularly with the industry, but over and above those sessions, I personally engage with quite a number of CEOs of the airlines, together with the body that represents the airlines, BASA in particular. We are in constant communication with them. We keep them in the loop insofar as the progress we are making, the challenges we are experiencing, and we appreciate their support and the patience during these difficult times.
Matoma, you're the acting CEO at Air Traffic Navigation Services, and you've actually been acting in this position for quite a long time. And I know from watching state-owned entities over many, many years, regulators, all sorts of things, that they sometimes have an acting CEO for a very long time, and you don't get to decide how long you're there. It's not your fault, is what I'm getting to. But do you have any idea of how long you're going to be there? Are you able to do everything that needs to be done in an acting capacity?
I'm fully empowered by the board to do everything it takes to get the organization up on its feet again. I'm a director in my own right within the organization. My substantive job is the CFO. And so I do have the backing of the board. I have worked with the board and I'm working very well with the board. The board is supportive to the, initiatives we are putting in. And I wouldn't really think that there should be a concern about the period of acting per se, because the work on the ground is happening. I've got a very good, ExCo team that works quite well with me.
Thank you very much indeed. Matome Mochalola is the Acting Chief Executive Officer of Air Traffic Navigation Services. You're with The Money Show, 23 minutes after 6.
7:02.
7:02.
Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
25 minutes after 6. A report in MoneyWeb today saying that the National Energy Regulator, NERSA, argued in court yesterday that you as a customer of a council had no right to know what that council would be paying Eskom for electricity when those councils are on selling that electricity to you. In other words, you would have no right to know how much profit the council would be making. This is all part of AfriForum's application to force NERSA to publish the cost of supply studies carried out by councils. Ruse Moleshe is an energy expert, an expert on the financing of electricity too. Ruse, good evening. I thought the Constitution was pretty clear on things like this. It is calls for public consultation. Usually we have the right to government information. Isn't this argument from NERSA just plain wrong?
Hi, Stephen, and to the listeners. I think it depends what type of information it is. If it's proprietary information that may have impact on other players in the market, possibly from a competition point of view, there could be an argument that you only see sanitized information and not everything. So it depends on the type of information. But in general, you're correct. South Africa is a consultative democracy that is enshrined in our constitution and all our legislative framework, barring areas where there's a potential sensitivity in terms of commercially or proprietary or competition-related information.
I would think that there would be other duties on the councils to tell us anyway. I mean, surely City Power has to publish an annual report in Joburg, and we would know what the cost of electricity was.
What it costs for them to produce electricity. I guess you do to an extent, because, if you look at the Eskom, the multi-year price determination, it's quite clear how the formula is made and what information there is. However, you wouldn't get to the detail of how much was this contract with so-and-so. That's why I'm saying it depends on the specifics.
There is a lot going on around electricity tariffs at the moment, Jose, as you know. There's the big study being carried out by Senedi on the way that tariffs are being calculated. Do you get a sense we'll actually see real change? It's great to have electricity and no load shedding, but so many people can't afford it.
Well, I'm not as optimistic as the minister and everyone else is. And the reason why I'm not is because I'm cognizant of the capex or capital requirements for building the infrastructure that we have, and that in terms of the South African law, at least a user pays. So at the end of the day, maybe there'll be retrieve here and there and efficiencies, as Eskom is saying, but overall, I don't see a big bang impact.
Ruse Moleshe, I was having such a nice day until I asked you that question. Thank you so much. Ruse Moleshe is an energy and finance expert. 28 minutes after 6.
The Money Show.
The Markets.
Chris Stewart's portfolio manager at 91. Chris, good evening. Glencore are having a nice day. They had a strong production update.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen. Yeah, commodities leading the markets today. A little interest away from the commodity complex, and Glencore leading the commodities themselves, or the commodity stocks themselves, on the back of a pretty robust third quarter production report. This after having a couple of production disappointments earlier in the year. All important copper, which also incidentally today hit an all-time high. So copper very important in the life of Glencore, accounting for more than 25% of the profitability of the group. Copper production looking pretty good, and also beats both on the thermal and metallurgical coal side. Reiterating their profit guidance for the year, reiterating their production guidance for the year, which I think in certain cases the market had after the first half of the year been doubting they would achieve. So generally speaking, all quite well received at Glencore.
And then First Rand, quite a nice acquisition in Zambia.
Yeah, very small. They are acquiring the retail and wealth business of Standard Chartered. Now, Standard Chartered has made it fairly public that they are exiting their retail banking and wealth management operations across the continent. We saw ABSA announce during the course of last week, if I remember correctly, that they would be buying the Ugandan retail business from Standard Chartered, and FirstRand announcing today that they will be acquiring the Zambian business thereof to combine with their existing Zambian business that they've built greenfields over the last 15 years or so. So that will help them bulk up a little bit, provides a nice deposit base, and may even provide opportunities for them to start to use some of their newly acquired fintech capability through the announcement of a couple of days ago that they've taken a 20% stake in Optasia, maybe looking to roll out some sort of microfinance offerings across the continent. And I guess play a little bit of catch up relative to some of their peers, certainly Standard Bank and ABSA, who have a slightly bigger franchise across the continent.
All of I nearly said North Korea, North America, talking about interest rate cuts. The Bank of Canada today. And I mean, I have not seen anyone bet against a cut from the Fed tonight.
No, I think the Fed cuts, last time I checked, I think was a 98% certainty, which means it's as near as done for this particular meeting, although there will always be some naysayers who say that they probably shouldn't be cutting, given that the U.S. economy is in still a reasonably robust state. Maybe the market's getting a little bit ahead of itself, though, because if you look at the likelihood ascribed to a second cut or a further cut later on this year, making 50 basis points cumulatively still for the rest of the year. If the Fed pour cold water on that potential rate cut, and they're operating in a slight vacuum from a data perspective because of the U.S. government shutdown, I think the risk is that the market may take that negatively. Certainly the good news of a further 25 basis point rate cut tonight, I think, fully priced in.
Chris Stewart, thanks very much indeed. Portfolio manager at 91.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
22 minutes to 7. I was asking you where you're going over the holiday period. If you're going home, if you're actually going on holiday, if you're doing both of those things. And it was sparked by news that Southern Sun has signed another long-term lease on those two big buildings. They sort of run as one hotel, really, but they're kind of two on the Durban beachfront. And I'm talking about the Elangeni and the Maharani. I mean, they've been there for a very long time. And they also, in a way, I think, symbolize that part of Durban. And there was a time, I mean, when I was growing up, and I was lucky enough to be growing up and being able to go on holiday as a kid, Durban was the place you wanted to go. You wanted to go to the sea. It was warm, all of those things. That changed a little bit, I think, during COVID. They had some unfortunate incidents with the beach water there. Where are you going on holiday?
Hi, several to listeners and Stephen. So, where do we go in December? Actually, I am born and bred in Johannesburg, and I will remain in Johannesburg. There was a very wise uncle that came to me a couple of months ago and said, the best place to be is in Joburg. And I've, year in, year out, always stayed in Joburg. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody in the city is going to the coastal places like KZN, Margate, so on and so forth. And Cape Town, all of those places are being filled with the domestic arrivals from other provinces. Yet nobody actually thinks to remain in Johannesburg. And at my beck and call, I will have food at my disposal. I will have empty restaurants, empty cinemas, and pure entertainment without the crowds. Perfect for me and my family. Prices also don't necessarily go up. So things are not that expensive.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, you don't think you can have a whole lot of people from Cape Town because they've all rented their homes out to Airbnb, to Germans and Italians or something. But yeah, I hear you. I know some people who say that Joburg over Christmas is the best place in South Africa all year. 20 minutes to 7.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
14 minutes now to 7 the time. We will talk about the NHI in just a moment. Your reflections, too, on the conversation we had with the acting CEO of Air Traffic Navigation Services. There's so much that needs to be done. So much of it is technical. And in the end, as always with government entities, it boils down to skills and money. Interesting to see the progress they've made. We've heard so often from the airline industry of how frustrated and angry people are. Well, a suggestion by the Health Deputy Director General in charge of the NHI, Dr. Nicholas Crisp, in Parliament yesterday, medical aid tax credits could be phased out for the richest third of people using medical aid. Essentially, if you use medical aid now, you would no longer get a tax credit. The extra money would be used by government to fund the NHI. You know, by last count, I think it was 8 court cases currently against the introduction of the NHI. Shergeran Naidoo is the CEO of the Health Funders Association. Shergeran, good evening. I presume you oppose this plan to do away with the medical aid tax credit or even part of it.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think, we've actually made a number of oppositions, and more recently, as of Monday, we made another supplementary affidavit opposing a stay in consolidation. I think, just on the medical tax credits, there's a lot of new information coming out. In fact, it's new today from what was, let's say, last week. In the affidavits, it was originally said only people above 1 million rand, would medical tax credits be removed. And today I've seen it's actually now, from what I can see, 1/3. So there's so many moving parts and pieces to it. But, I think what's still missing is actually, what does this actually mean rationally? If I can, maybe just take a few comments off top. I looked at what was in the presentation. I looked at it. It tells me the NHI has a long roadmap. It's 10 to 15 years that, we'll actually see something plausible. So, and unfortunately, what I've seen, right, is come by 2040 or so, the budget is meant to reach 450 billion. Now, this may seem like large numbers, but let me give you some context. Today, the combined healthcare expenditure is just under 600 billion. So public and private today in 2025 terms is 600 billion. So, but now what we're saying is in 2040, the combined budget is going to be 450 billion rand. So it doesn't make rational sense. There's no inflation. There's no kind of, rationality to it. And I actually did some back envelope calculations today, which is, it seems that 150 billion rand will be raised in taxes, along the way, to fund the NHI and somewhere, in a few years. And I asked, what does it actually mean for, the 7.4 million taxpayers that we have in our country? It would mean that personal income tax as percentage of taxation would increase by 21% to 26%. Somebody who's currently 18% will have to pay 18% tax or have to pay 23% tax. So, there's various implications, unfortunately.
Okay. So Shergeran, I've heard you and I get that. And I was actually in the ANC press conference in 2010 at the National General Council when they first announced this. And it was said then it would be 10 to 15 years. And that was 15 years ago in July this year. But there is a bigger argument here, and I do need to put it to you. And the argument would go, and this does come from the health department, but it's obvious. Essentially, richer people, through the medical aid tax credit, are getting a government subsidy that allows them to use private health care. And is that really a situation that government should be enabling now?
So I think, firstly, there is a misnomer that, medical scheme members are rich. I think, firstly, 84% of medical scheme members earn less than 40,000 rand a month, right? And that's not rich. And those are the people that actually receive the subsidy. And what actually, across the world, what actually the subsidies are enabled, including Australia, et cetera, and in South Africa, it actually takes away people from the public sector. So the public sector has more funds for the vulnerable, et cetera. And those people that can afford it, can afford private medical aid. Mm-hmm. So it's not a South African thing. It's an international thing where subsidies and incentives, let's say, are used to free up resources for the vulnerable.
I presume that your opposition to removing the medical aid tax credit, or even just from a third of people who get medical aid now, who have medical aid now, I presume this would be part of your court case. I mean, I'm sure, and I don't think I'm being too cynical when I say this. Obviously, people in your position want as many court cases as possible because it drags things out for longer.
No, absolutely not. So firstly, it's not about court cases. To be honest, we have always wanted to engage with the government to put a solution for all 61 million South Africans, actually 63 million South Africans, because we believe, in equity and equality, etc. Unfortunately, what's been tabled as the NHI, is totally against any international best practices. So if the opportunity, and hopefully I believe there is maybe in the near future, we'll be able to sit down and discuss what is a viable solution for South Africa. But it's definitely not this NHI, the financial model that's been put on the table here. Catastrophically, it would lead us to.
Shergeran Naidoo, thanks very much indeed. CEO of the Health Funders Association. Well, your view on that, 011-883-0702, 021-446-0567, is the NHI going to work? It's a conversation we've been having for a long time, but I do find the idea, the argument around whether or not government should essentially have a medical aid tax credit, I find that particularly interesting. Voice notes 072-702-1702, 8 minutes to 7.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
All right, well, lots to come in the next little while. We'll talk about your salary in just a moment. I don't know if you feel that is really increasing, but there's some data to suggest that, in fact, that it is. I saw a story, Fin 24, I think it was, Johan van Lochrenberg, who was one of the top investigators at SARS for a very long time, the head of that unit that was sort of unfortunately wrongly reported by the Sunday Times. They eventually retracted that story. And that really was the entry point for Tom Moyane and others to kind of get into SARS and to destroy its capacity. Well, Johan van Lochrenberg, who was forced out at the time, is now reportedly back at SARS. I have no problem with that. He has a long experience there. If you're trying to crack people like Lucky Montana, SARS says they are. If you're trying to crack illicit tobacco, that's probably the kind of person you want there, someone with that experience. I do have one question, though, and maybe it's just my curiosity, which is, if Johan van Lochrenberg is, and I've met him once or twice, is that good, and I think he must be, then why didn't he go back to SARS immediately after state capture ended? When Edward Kieswetter, the commissioner, started the process of reforming it all, what sort of happened? I mean, maybe he was busy doing other things, but that would just be my one question. It would make sense to me that a lot of those people who were forced out at the time would go back to SARS pretty quickly. I know that that's happening slowly, and I realize people have lives, and the private sector's attractive, and I don't know, maybe the Sandton traffic's better than the Pretoria traffic or something. But I still was just interested in that gap. 5 minutes now to 7.
702. Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
Well, the PayInc Net Salary Index is up for the 6th consecutive month in September. It tracks the average nominal net salaries of over 2 million people with jobs in South Africa. Shergeran Naidoo is the head of Stakeholder Engagements at PayInc. Shergeran, good evening. This, on the face of it, looks like quite a sustained period of salary increases for many, many people.
Good evening, Stephen, and thank you for having us on your show. It actually does. In fact, the data reflects that 2025 will be, in inverted commas, a good salary on average. And this is really based on factors such as the benign inflationary environment and so forth that we're experiencing. And it's really reflective of the fact that the economy is also in a better place than most of us would have thought probably 8-9 months ago.
I mean, it does seem that salaries are going up by more than inflation. I mean, I realize that, it's not a lot, but it still is. Does that reflect perhaps that people are taking a while to bring salary increases down? Does it maybe reflect the sort of skill shortage that we do have despite our high unemployment?
I think probably all those factors could come into play. bearing in mind that we, as part of the PayInc Net Salary Index, we measure salaries between 5,000 and 100,000. And there's a pool of approximately 2.1 million salary payments that get measured in that court. And it's really reflective of the fact that we've got probably a larger proportion of the salaries are in the lower bucket, and not as much in the 40 to 100,000 rand as you might expect. But also that there have been approximately about 175,000 salaries that have come into our data pool in this last 9 months. So even though we've got such a high unemployment rate, I mean, we're hovering in the 33% or thereabouts, but there's at least some positive signs that there is employment that's taking place, and that these numbers are coming through via the PayInc Net Salary Index. Another positive point was that just in this last quarter, in the third quarter, there was approximately 48,000 new payments that came in there as well. So I think it's pretty much reflective of a good news story.
I mean, one would like to hope that this momentum is going to sustain itself. It might be impossible to know that, of course.
Yeah, I mean, if we had a crystal ball, I think we'd be able to make those predictions. With all of the global headwinds that are at play, potentially next year this time could be a different story. But I think for now, given where we're at, given the benign inflationary environment we're in, and the expectation that inflation will average around 3.3% this year, and with the expectation that most salary increases have been in excess of 5%, you're looking at least for this period of time, quite a positive story, and that most South Africans that are employed and that are experiencing or receiving salaries are at least on the better end of the scale.
It's an unfortunate fact of South African life that if I had to say now, do you feel that you're getting paid more than you were last year? Almost everyone would probably say no. And that's simply because of the demands on our money.
Absolutely. I mean, the lived experience versus what the data reflects are often not always the same. I mean, we know that food price inflation is really high, particularly beef. I mean, with the implications from the foot and mouth disease and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's having to fork out in this current environment feels that they've got less, notwithstanding that the data reflects that they ought to be, that they've got more.
Indeed. Shergeran Naidoo, thanks very much indeed. Head of Stakeholder Engagements at PayInc. Really do appreciate the time. You're with The Money Show. It's 7 o'clock.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
7:07, good evening. Well, we'll speak to Graham Codrington in just a moment. The cost of artificial intelligence, and it's all about electricity. There's been a lot of talk about this, but some of it's very interesting, and that power has to come from somewhere. Don't forget your consumer ninja, Wendy Nola. I find it really interesting that she has picked up on something that that Warren Ingram's also picked up on, and I thought that was very interesting, and it tells you something when people who study very different things come up with the same issue. And then Nikki Bush, your shapeshifter this evening, the speaker, author, media personality, also an expert on human potential. Really looking forward to that. Someone I've worked with, you'll know she's done a lot at this radio station over the years. Really looking forward to catching up with Nikki Bush as your shapeshifter this evening. Will she have a good answer to the shapeshifter question everybody fears, which is, what do you do for fun? You're not allowed to say jogging. Nikki, I'll warn you properly in a moment. 8 minutes after 7.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
Conversations about holidays, the holiday period, conversations about tax, conversations about medical aid tonight.
Hey, Stephen, Craig here. I just want to challenge this idea that there are 7 million taxpayers. Everybody pays tax in South Africa. Every time you buy a loaf of bread or a car or a pair of shoes, you pay tax. So this idea of, well, we only have 7 million taxpayers needs to be unpacked. What people mean is that the people who are employed and who are paying PAYE are taxpayers, but everybody pays tax. And it's time that we really put this kind of silly idea that only 7 million people in South Africa pay tax to bed. Really, it is the most ridiculous argument, and it just undermines every argument that people make when they make that claim. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with you on the facts of it. That yes, everybody who engages with the economy, the moment you use any kind of sort of monetary instrument, the moment you use rands, let's put it like that, you do pay tax in South Africa. That's true. And that does mean that almost everybody is a taxpayer. I think that's true. The issue, of course, really, and this is, you're right, they are getting to sort of people who pay PAYE, pay as you earn. They are talking about income tax specifically. And it takes you to a class argument very quickly, I always find. The moment you get into that, there's a sort of class argument there. I do think, and I made the point, for me, the interesting argument about the NHI is not should we have an NHI or not. I think that the government is trying to bring this in at the wrong time, at a time when everyone is incredibly cynical about government because of the state capture era, and I think it's an uphill climb. For me, the interesting argument is, should there be a medical aid tax credit or not? Because I find it very hard to get away from the argument that it is a subsidy for richer people to get private health care. I understand all of the other arguments that come against that too, which include that it would increase the burden on government. I get that too. And also, why would you remove it now if the NHI isn't ready? That might be true too. Anyway, your thoughts on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show.
Business Unusual.
It's hard to believe that our generative AI apps like ChatGPT are now 3 years old. Next month, they'll be 3 years old. A large number of people are using them every week. And all of this is taking up a huge amount of electricity. Graham Codrington's the futurist and partner at Tomorrow Today. Graham, good evening. It's been a minute. Good to talk to you again. I remember when Google came along, someone said to me, Stephen, every time you go onto Google and search for something, it's like boiling a kettle. It's the same with AI, but worse, isn't it?
Good evening, Stephen. Yes, it is definitely worse. I don't think people really understand this. You go on your phone and you put in a ChatGPT request and it comes back with a wonderful answer or generates a picture for you. But actually what's happening in the background is somewhere in a cloud server, and the clouds are not in the clouds. They are sitting on land somewhere. A massive big computing GPU, a graphic processing unit, fires up. And if you've ever had your own computer or laptop whirring away and fans whirring while you may be doing a video or some, heavy processing, you'll realize it generates heat and it uses up electricity. And these generative AI queries are way worse than anything else that we've done before. Just for reference, if you do just a simple query to ChatGPT or any one of the others, it's basically, if you get a sort of medium-sized response, let's call it that, it's the same as having charged your cell phone from 0 to 100%. So think about how long that takes or how much power that takes. And these videos that are now being produced, every 5 seconds of videos is the same as switching your microwave on at full power for an hour.
Wow.
This is going to add up if we've got 500 million users using these things every single day at least once. This adds up. People are estimating somewhere between 1 and 2% of total electricity use on the planet at the moment goes into these generative AI models. It's quite something.
Sure. I'm presuming that, national grids and even sort of international grids like ours are not going to be able to run that. AI companies who want to build their own, it might be cheaper for them too, but that takes a long time, and we all know exactly how long it takes to build a power station.
Well, you see, now this is where I wanted to come in this evening. If people didn't know about the power usage, there is a bit of a wow there. But I think many people knew it was using a lot of power. But now this is exactly the right question, Stephen. Where does that power come from? And Sam Altman has recently, so he's the guy behind OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. He's basically said, no, they're going to build this massive 50 gigawatt data center, and they're going to just build a nuclear power station right next to it because that's just going to be the easiest way to deal with it. Now, if any South African was listening, they might have a little spidey sense going up. How long does it take between discussing whether you are going to build a nuclear power station and when you actually build one? And then we've got to even ask who can build it. Because it's a very specialized skill, and a power station like that costs, in excess of $25 billion to put together. So that's the second part of the problem. The first part is that costing us more than we thought in terms of electricity. The second is we don't have enough electricity, and we can't just wave a magic wand to make this electricity appear, as much as these tech bros would hope that they could just say, make it so, and then it's done by next Friday. It's not going to happen with this one.
At the moment, most of these things are free to use. Isn't that the way? I mean, isn't that going to just come to an end because it's just too expensive?
Well, and I think it's worse than that, even, Stephen. This is my third data point, if you like. So there's a lot of electricity to use. We don't have enough electricity. But the third data point is the promises of continual growth. I'm sure I heard on your show recently, but just to remind people, the so-called big seven tech companies, that's Apple, Microsoft, and let me get this right, Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, Nvidia, and Tesla. There we go. They account for 37% of the S&P 500 index. 37% of the big 500 companies, that's the market cap. And listen to this one, Stephen. 92% of GDP growth in the United States this year comes from those seven companies alone. In other words, our economy, the perception of growth in our economy and the perception of how healthy our economy is in the hands of seven companies. But here's the problem. These seven companies are all buying from each other. So Nvidia gives a loan to Microsoft and OpenAI in order to buy Nvidia's own chips, but then Microsoft gives a loan to Nvidia in the form of cloud hours to use the hours that they are building. And I think all of this adds up you've got to be careful of using this word on the Money Show, but I want to use the word bubble at the moment, because the money's going around, the capital investment is going around in circles between these seven and two or three others, including Oracle and OpenAI. But they've got to start getting user money in. And I pay for one or two of the professional versions of these platforms, but that's only $20 a month. And in electricity usage alone, I've calculated with how much I use of these things, I'm using at least 3 times that cost in the electricity alone, let alone the capital investment. In other words, the paying users are not paying enough. And most of the users are non-paying. Again, don't want to use a word, but I'm starting to use a capital B for the word bubble here. And that, for me, is it's not so much business unusual as maybe even business dangerous at the moment, as we think about how much AI is integrated into what many companies are doing around the world.
We got 20 seconds, Graham, but I mean, there would be money to be made in supplying the power.
Well, in the old gold rush days, they said, it's not the people who are digging for the gold that are going to get rich. It's the people who are selling the shovels. And I think that's probably where we are now, that the people who supply the power and the infrastructure are going to be the ultimate winners. We could be the losers if we rely on these models without understanding the implications of the cost structures in the background.
Graham Codrington, good to talk again. Futurist and partner at Tomorrow Today.
The Money Show.
Consumer Ninja.
Well, Wendy Nola, of course, your consumer ninja. And last night we heard from Warren Ingram in our personal finance segment about the risks of buy now, pay later. there's been a lot of activity about this, and let's get Wendy's take. Wendy, good evening. Takealot are having a bit of a buy now, pay later option at the moment.
Yes, they announced that from last week, their customers have the ability now to pay in interest-free installments through their partnership with PayJustNow. PayJustNow, incidentally, serves over 3 million consumers and nearly 3,000 merchants through 12,000 retail outlets. So it's pretty huge. And the customer base is mainly millennials and Gen Z customers.
So everyone talks about, oh, it's great, I got whatever I needed and I can pay it off. But that sort of comes to a bit of a shuddering halt if you don't pay in full and on time.
That's the thing. So the no interest thing is a big draw card, and obviously there's no credit checks. It's quick, easy, there's a lot of lovely imagery around it, and it's perfect for millennials and Gen Z. It's where they are. But yeah, not so lekker if you don't pay in full and on time. So how it works is you typically will pay it you're going to pay 4 installments. You pay 25% upfront, and then the buy now, pay later company settles the full amount with the retailer, and you now owe that company. And the retail stores pay quite a big fee to the buy now, pay later company, which they're prepared to do because typically those customers buy a lot more, and they're less likely to leave their items languishing in their baskets without paying, because they're wondering if they can afford it, because it's easy peasy with the pay later. Yeah. And then of course they get a lot of money from pay late fees. It's said that as many as 40% of buy now, pay later customers incur late payment fees because they're not paying as they should, and that's when this payment method can become quite expensive.
How big is the idea of buy now, pay later globally now?
So it's huge, but there's some ripples I'm picking up. People are starting to express some concern in a lot of quarters. In fact, recently a key player locally in the credit market said to me, "What you need to focus on these. They're unregulated. Millions of South African consumers, mainly young, affluent ones, are taking it out, but no one's considering the risks and allowing the product to be consumed without any affordability checks or regulatory oversight." So I said, yeah, right. I'll look at that. So yes, US finfluencer Andre Jik has been talking about it on YouTube. He calls it the buy now, broke later crisis.
So something that looks really easy and is advertised as being completely free is actually one of the biggest financial traps of our generation. It's the trap of
buy now,
buy now, buy now, buy now,
buy now, pay later. They've amassed millions of customers and thousands of partnerships with companies like Target, Amazon, and more. And they're expected to keep growing.
Anytime consumer is putting down their credit card and using a firm, we think it's a good thing.
If buy now, pay later promises 0 interest and no hidden fees and just 4 easy payments, and if it's really free, then how are these companies making billions and billions of dollars off of us? How are their stock prices going up like crazy? So here's what we know. Over the last few years, buy now, pay later services have exploded in popularity. The transaction volume alone has multiplied 20 times since 2019. And it's not even slowing down, because as of 2025, almost half of U.S. consumers have used a BNPL service.
And then, Wendy, he's not the only one talking about this. Koshia Karan's been talking about this too.
Yeah, he spoke about it in he posted a link to what he had to say on Twitter, on X last week. He says buy now, pay later solves a genuine problem. It took everything people hated about old school credit, paperwork, waiting, whatever, and deleted it. So you get instant approval, interest-free, the cash flow lifeline. If you're battling access for the underbanked, merchants love it because shoppers spend up to 40% more when there's a buy now, pay later option. Even with fees, and he put it at 8% that the merchants have to pay. And it's the imagery, and it's very psychological. So it feels like you're scrolling Spotify. He says there's soft colors, happy emojis, and confetti when you repay. So it's you can see how it appeals to that market. But the downside, he says, is that buy now, pay later leverages a few clever elements in consumer psychology to keep users hooked. So 4,000 Rand sounds, that's far too much, can't afford it. But 1,000 Rand feels manageable, and 250 Rand a week feels pretty innocuous compared to 1,000 Rand a month. And then, of course, there's the frictionless approval. And when something is done very fast, he says, and it's so true, impulse hits faster than logic. So when you can get into something really quickly and frictionlessly, which is what especially the younger consumers want, then, it's done before you've thought about, do I really want this? And can I really afford to pay as I'm supposed to pay? Especially if you've got more than one, Stephen, which many people do.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, where's the regulation in South Africa at the moment?
Well, it's as Karan says, it's a grey zone. So it sits somewhere between the National Credit Act and phase. So the result of that is minimal oversight and almost no standard disclosure rules, which is the kind of thing that traditional credit provider was saying. He says, this is crazy. Where's the oversight?
Sure, it's quite something, all of this. I'm presuming that people are going to learn lessons. Are there ways to actually make it work for you?
Yes. Karan says, and I completely agree with this, use it for needs, not wants. So groceries, not impulse Black Friday specials. Track your totals, because, if you've got these 4 easy payments across 5 apps, it's still 5 bills to pay. So in the absence of anyone else keeping tabs on, how spread you are, you must at least do it. And you must set up auto payments, because you forget once, and as we said, that interest-free part of the deal, the very appealing part, disappears. And read the fine print, because he says that's where your wallet leaks. And of course, read the fine print applies to every single thing you're doing in consumer land.
If we had to give your segment another name, it wouldn't be Consumer Ninja. It would be Read the Fine Print.
Yes, exactly.
Wendy Nola, your Consumer Ninja, telling you once again to read the fine print. Thanks very much.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
25 minutes now to 8 the time. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome someone I kind of know quite well, someone you know quite well, someone who's been on the radio with you through many years. And I think in a way, like many of us, has changed what we talk about over the years, which, take it from me, is harder to do than it can sound. Nikki Bush, the speaker, leadership expert, someone who tries to help women get the most out of their financial life. Nikki, it's great to see you again. Good evening.
Thank you, Stephen. Lovely to be here.
How do you describe yourself? Because I first heard your voice, if I can call it that, it's a radio conversation, talking about parenting. But you do so many other things now.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, I guess my career has evolved as my life has evolved. And I am a really good student of life. I'm a good observer and I'm a good learner, and I can package my learnings. I think that's one of my superpowers, is being able to gather those things and make sense of them. So overall, I'm a sense maker. But whatever I do, and it's evolved from parenting to working in the world of work. So now I do a lot around leadership, women's empowerment. I do team dynamics. It's all the same thing, actually.
Yeah.
It's all about people, connection, relationships, and raising human potential. So kind of the broad umbrella that I operate under now is human potential expert, because that covers all of those things I've just spoken about, and we can still squeeze in the parenting piece.
Yes. I have some questions about that because I find it interesting. I'm often interested, the publications I subscribe to, the columns that I read, that I go and look for, are the columns about work. The Financial Times had a great one for years and years, and then they let Lucy Kellaway go, and that was the end of that. The Economist has one. And yet, you would think, considering how much time we spend at work, often talking and complaining about the same things come up again and again, that actually not much time and attention is given to what the work experience is like in the kind of public conversation.
Yeah, I talk about work-life integration. There's no such thing as work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I've said that for 30 years. Be under no illusion. So it's about how you and how I create our own recipe for work-life integration. And what you do and what I do will be different because each person is like a unique fingerprint. Each family is like a unique fingerprint. And so there's no real one-size-fits-all. There are some basic principles. But really, you've created on the run more than anything else. And so much of work-life integration is about what you're prepared to say yes to and what you're prepared to say no to. So we're really talking boundaries at the end of the day, because what you focus on will flourish. And if you have too many irons in the fire, nothing flourishes. And money flows where focus goes. So I guess, my own parenting experience informed the first part of my career. I wanted to be flexible, so I gave up a corporate career and I wanted to work for myself, work from home, be there for the firsts of everything with my children, which I was. There were times I felt like I was a racehorse with a bit between my teeth, holding myself back. I was very clear I wasn't going to travel for business till my youngest was 7, because I understand child development. And so as my children got bigger, I had more and more time to work. And that meant I could do more and I could impact more. That's just the way I chose to do it. What it has meant, though, is that I gave up the corporate salary early on in my career, took less home, had more quality time with those I wanted to have quality time with. I'm playing catch up now, financially. I don't regret it. I was asked on the stage the other day, is there a sacrifice you've made in your lifetime, and do you regret it? No, I don't regret it one little bit. And I'm also a great proponent of the fact that no experience is ever wasted, lost, or forgotten. So wherever you are in your life, you've got here based on those experiences, those choices. And so you need to own them. And it's amazing how if you own them, you can pull threads through all the time. And I see that in my own career. The parenting is pulled into leadership. Me becoming a widow at the age of 50, needing to become financially far more savvy than I ever had been, because now it was mine was the only income, has informed my women's empowerment work. So nothing I talk about or have ever spoken about has ever come from a textbook. Even though I speak at business schools, I don't speak like a business school lecturer. Play has always been such a foundational part of the work I did in the parenting, or I do in the parenting field. And I pull that right through into leadership workshops. So, my work is serious, but it has a fun element which makes learning easy for people. And I then provide frameworks and they can put it to good use immediately without going to do an MBA.
For you, women empowerment is one of the things and financial empowerment you've been particularly looking at. And it's clearly informed by your own experience. And there are so many people who've made choices similar to ones that you've made, it's all about childcare, that management, the way our society is, all of those things. I mean, clearly that's what sort of drove you in that direction.
Yeah, so the women's empowerment piece is interesting because I think that for me, I've chosen a catchphrase now, which is choice freedom. Women who control their finances control their future. And you don't have to be putting your whole salary away into investments. But sadly, women mostly keep their money in cash. About 70% of women keep their money in cash rather than investing their money into growth vehicles. So part of my mission is to really inspire women to create better outcomes from their income. And you can be a teacher, you can be a nurse, you don't have to be the CEO of a major corporation. But the discipline of the debit order from as early on as possible is going to help you to maximize compound interest. And these are things that women on the whole have been kind of kept out of for a long time, until literally when FICA came in. That changed everything for women, because suddenly you needed to have an account in your name a bank account in your name.
I never thought of it like that, I have to say.
It's quite an interesting one. And it's given me a bit of self-forgiveness for the financial mistakes that I've made, because FICA was only in the 90s when it came in. I'd already been working for a few years by then. But for women, it's about also not being ignorant. There's a lot of information out there today.
Is there another thing, which is that men have no problem investing for themselves and their own future, but women actually think, well, the money's better spent on, so often, someone other than men? Well, that's where I was heading, but yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we have generations of conditioning to be selfless. It's in our DNA. And for so often we've been the supporting cast. And you can step into the spotlight of your own life, even if you're in a marriage. It's obviously a shared situation. But when I say stepping into the spotlight of your own life, it's having money of your own. It's paying your future self, because one day you're going to want to make some choices. Do you want to step out of corporate? Do you want to set up your own job? Do you want to retire? Do you want to divorce? Whatever it is, for me, choice freedom is when a woman has the ability to make the decisions and the choices she either needs or wants to make when it matters.
I mean, and you look at the correlation sort of through history of when financial freedom for women came and when divorce rates started to go up, and you can see how important that financial choice is. When I look at people who are speaking on a stage doing what you're doing professionally, almost none of them started at sort of 17 thinking, oh, I want to be a speaker, because you have to have a story first, whatever it is. You mean Rian Mansa and, I don't know, go around the world or something, or row across the Pacific in a bucket, and suddenly, sorry, Rian, but you know what I mean. And there's the story. What did you want to do when you were growing up, when you were finishing school? I mean, did you have an idea? And clearly you did some corporate stuff. Is there a BCom you've never told us about, Nikki Bush?
No, it's quite interesting, because the aptitude test that I did in matric said I should become a dietitian or a home economist. And I'm sure I would have been very good at it.
Home economist.
Yeah.
This is a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. So, home economics was my best subject. I mean, it was just, I loved it. Then I went to Australia as an exchange student for a year. And I believe that mentors come into your life officially and unofficially all the time. And we need to be awake to the mirrors that appear in our lives. And somebody appeared in my life. It was a Rotarian in Australia who was in marketing in the non-profit space. And I did some work experience in a place for cerebral palsy children. And while I was there, he put a sheaf of papers in my bag one afternoon when I left. And on the top it said, I think you would be great at this. And it was from the Institute of Public Relations in Australia. And it defined what a job in public relations looked like. So I came home and qualified, did a 3-year qualification in public relations. So I started off my career, and most people don't know that I've had 3 careers.
Yeah.
Which I think is what makes me an interesting speaker and an interesting business consultant and strategic leadership coach, because I've got lots of dimensions and different experiences. So, I was in public relations for 10 years, eventually ran my own shop for a couple of years once I realized I wanted to be self-employed. Then I fell into my passion because another mentor appeared and pulled me off into a direct selling meeting for the direct sales of games and toys. Smile Education, some of our listeners will remember them, biggest manufacturer and, network marketing company of educational games and toys. And that spawned an entirely different career of leadership, recruiting, running teams. I was great at sales. I could write up training material. People came from all over the place to come to my trainings. And I loved it. And a lot of what I did in those years gave me such an appreciation for human behavior, how people make decisions, how you can motivate people. And I've repackaged that, and I do it in the corporate space for top CEOs. Because human nature is human nature. Yeah. And I understand the attention game and, how to motivate people and how to see them. That's the real issue. Yeah. So third career was kind of sales related. And then, second career. Third career was Nikki Bush, the speaker, and also, which started off with me in 2006 as the parenting expert.
So I wanted to ask you a question about parenting expert, and I realize it's not your main focus now. But, I mean, and I always laugh to myself whenever my 13-year-old daughter comes home with a joint project. I remember you, I don't know who you were talking to on the radio, saying, apart from screens, it's a parent's worst nightmare, the group project. I just laughed and laughed. But when you are talking about parenting with people, you are getting really under their skin. Now you really know them in a way that you don't. And I'm always amazed as a parent. I will talk about my kids in a way to someone I don't know, so long as they're also a parent, because there's the secret kind of sisterhood and brotherhood of parents, you know. And you'll tell them things and they'll tell you things, and you find that's really interesting. It must have been quite a thing to get under people's skin like that, because you really know their hopes and their fears when you talk to them about their children.
It's very personal, and we have to stop living vicariously through our children. And yes, we are shaping our children without a doubt, but our children actually, ultimately, we need to let go of them. You know, your kids are too young for you to understand this, but I'm pulling your leg. But really, this is the parallel between leadership in a business and leadership as a parent. Is the ultimate goal of both is to raise up resourceful, resilient, independent children or people, employees, and let them go. And that's the most frightening thing for a parent, to even consider that one day their children, you know, they must launch them into the world, because you can't kind of conceive of it when they're really small. You're getting to that point where you might be able to see that your teenagers might one day go and spread their wings. But if we don't actually focus on this, we will have children living with us till they're 35. And so I guess I'm good at painting the reality of, do you want this? They will steal your retirement, which is true, and it's happening all over the place, because kids don't want to take whatever's out there. They want something specific. And it's the same with a business. Whether it's your own business and you're the founder, or whether you're the CEO of a multinational, you need to literally become redundant. If you're a good leader, you're raising other people up behind you, underneath you, beside you, to take over your job. And that's your role, you know, beyond creating a profitable enterprise and keeping it profitable. But if you just think about that, it changes the lens through which you are looking in terms of making your parenting decisions or making your leadership decisions.
We're speaking to Nikki Bush, the speaker, author, and media personality. She's your shapeshifter tonight, 9 minutes to 8.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
We're speaking to Nikki Bush, the human potential expert, speaker, and author. It's 8 minutes now to 8. Nikki, there are a lot of people who sort of do what you do. They speak about different things. COVID must have been the most awful time, and I sometimes wonder if, in fact, that entire market has yet come back.
COVID was a brilliant time for me. On the back of the loss of my husband, I was pretty much 2 years into the grieving journey when COVID hit. And I knew instinctively that every person on this planet was going to go through a version of what I had been through for 2 years. There was a moment when COVID first hit, and I just started feeling a tiny bit of a sense of control in my life again after my husband's death. And I remember looking up at the sky and going, dear God, can you just give me a break? Now you must give us COVID. But the interesting thing was that because my being knew what everyone was going to go through, my empathy for everybody was, how can I help? And I wrote a white paper on how to mitigate the biggest risk to your business right now, which is parents working from home with their children.
Yes.
And so this became the bridge between parenting and the world of work for me, and getting a real foothold into working in the corporate space. And it went viral, that white
I'm sure.
paper. And I sent it to my publisher, Penguin Random House, and I said, look, this has gone viral. Don't know if it's of interest to you. It could be a book or something. And they came back to me and said, yes, but we don't want it just to be about parents in the workforce and working from home with children. Can you write something bigger? And so from writing Future-Proof Your Child for the 2020s and beyond, I then wrote Future-Proof Yourself, How to Win at Work and Life, which incorporated all the disruptions that are happening in the future world of work, as well as working in hybrid, et cetera, working from home with kids. And that book has become a bestseller. And I created 3 workshops at the time. One was called Reframing Disruption. The other was How to Be a Parenting Hero During COVID. And the third one was How to Raise Your Presence in Front of the Webcam. So if you think about no experience is ever wasted, lost, or forgotten, Reframing Disruption was built around my experience of walking through the shadow lands of trauma, grief, and loss. But putting obviously a spin on it with self-care and self-mastery and managing your people, and depending on who I was talking to. The second talk, How to Be a Parenting Hero, came through all my parenting experience personally and what I had taught for years. And it was a smash hit. And then the third one was on the back of all the media work that I have done, sitting in this studio behind this microphone and sitting in TV studios, because I've done nearly 5,000 media interviews. I could help people elevate their presence because I know that when you're talking into the ether here, we know we're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And I could explain that to people, that it wasn't nothingness out there.
It's quite a weird thing in a way.
Yeah, and how to be more engaging and, how to keep people's attention. And it was really fun. And corporates booked me 3 workshops at a time.
Sure.
The trilogy was booked, and I was getting calls from human resources directors of the JSC, MTN, Vodacom, Discovery. Help, we're sending 6,000 people to work from home, and we haven't a clue what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I was in the sweet spot just because of all my combined experience. So it really was a good time for me.
Okay, let's put work to one side. Nikki, what do you do for fun? No jogging?
No jogging. Okay. So if you watch my Nikki Bush Speaker Facebook page.
Stop the advertising.
Where I talk more about, personal stuff and less about businessy stuff, you'll see that I absolutely love going to view open gardens and show gardens.
Oh, really?
And I landscape for fun. I landscape friends and families' gardens, and I get such a kick out of it. It's just like, I can feel it in my fingers.
Yes. Is it about feeling, I know for a lot of people
No,
it's about
it's
that.
not. It's not about the soil, feeling the soil for me. It's about the positioning and the placement. It's my spatial eye, and I've always had it. Another thing that people don't know about me is that when I was pregnant with my youngest, who's now 26, I started an interior decorating business with my mum, and I got my mum into business, and she's still running that business today at 78. And I know she's listening right now. So hi, Mum. So proud of you. And so, that speaks to the spatial creative eye. I'm creative in writing and speaking, but also in the way I place things, whether it's plants or furniture or whatever it is.
I have no eye for that at all. Are there particular places that you've traveled to that stay with you, or places you want to go to? Yeah, or somewhere else.
So I've been, doing the circuit with speaking. So Hong Kong, Singapore, Bali, Thailand, spoken in the States, been to the UK. Wherever I go, I want to go to beautiful gardens. So I always put those on my bucket list. So botanical gardens wherever I am. But there's no place like home. I'm a homebod through and through. I like to put down roots. So I like to have an anchor. And that's been an interesting journey, because after my husband died, we sold our home because my youngest son couldn't come and sleep at home again. And so for about 5 years, we had most of our stuff in storage. And 2 years ago, I decided, okay, going to buy property again. And this is home. And it took traveling overseas to make that decision.
Nikki Bush, has been wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. The human potential expert, speaker and author, your shapeshifter on The Money Show.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud sponsor of the ABSA Africa Financial Markets Index 2025.
Well, U.S. markets up again, and in fact, looking at new peaks as well. But the Dow Jones is up 0.3%. The NASDAQ is up 0.46%. The S&P 500 is up 0.16%. Yesterday, Apple went past $4 trillion in valuation for the first time. Today, Nvidia said, well, we see that. Hold my beer. We'll do $5 trillion as a valuation. Still to come this week, of course, that big meeting between Trump and Xi in South Korea tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.